Okay, now this is part 2 of lesson 2. Estates and interest in land, the subdivision of land and title registration. So question 505. A real estate service under the Real Estate Services Act, RESA, includes, and the answer is 4, all of the above. And so what are 1, 2, 3 then? 1, 2, 3. Finding a party to acquire real estate. All right, so you find somebody to buy land or houses. 2, collecting rents or security deposits for the use of real estate. All right, collecting rents or security deposits. And 3, advising on the appropriate price for real estate. So that's appraising, right? So the answer is all of the above. Question 524. The expenses incurred by the Real Estate Council are covered by, and the answer is assessments on all licensees. So that's where the money comes from. Real Estate Council, they have expenses, and these expenses are covered by the assessments on all licensees. 552. A trading services representative must never promise to buy or sell any real estate belonging to a prospective buyer. And continue the sentence. Number 1, unless at the time of making the promise, a signed statement setting forth the details of the promise is given to the person to whom the promise has been made. So let's recap this. So a realtor should never promise to buy or sell any land or houses belonging to a prospective buyer. Number 1, so the answer is unless at the time of making the promise, a signed statement setting forth the details of the promise is given to the person to whom the promise has been made. So there needs to be a signed statement. You got that? There needs to be a signed statement. 565. The Realtor Code of Ethics is enforced by whom? Do you know who they're enforced by? The Realtor Code of Ethics is enforced by 2 local real estate boards. Local real estate boards, they enforce the Realtor Code of Ethics. You got that? The local real estate boards. 566. Which of the following information is not necessary for a brokerage to keep in the real estate trade record sheet? So they don't need this. Real estate brokerage doesn't need this in the real estate trade record sheet. And the answer, let's go through the things they do need in the real estate trading sheet. They need the sale price or other consideration for the trade in real estate. They need, that's 2. They need 3, the nature of the trade in real estate. And 4, they need the names and addresses of all parties to the trade in real estate. They need all this. Now, the thing that the brokerage does not need is the date of the MLS listing, of the Realtor.ca listing. They don't need it. They don't need the date. That's kind of weird. They don't need the date. 611. To qualify for a managing broker's license in BC, a person must meet which of the following requirements? And the answer is to be of good reputation. So you must be of good reputation, right, if you want to be a managing broker. All right, going over to page 13 now. 612. Alan recently assisted Peter in the sale of Peter's house. What are the legal consequences of his doing so? And the answer is 2. If Alan is unlicensed but performed the service without receiving or expecting any money or reward, he has done nothing wrong. So here we go again. If Alan is unlicensed, even though he helped Peter sell his home, but performed the service without receiving or expecting any money or reward, he has done nothing wrong. So That's okay. You got that? So 636. The Real Estate Services Act, the RESA, stipulates that the Real Estate Council is made up of, number 4, 3 representatives, 3 reps, 9 managing brokers, 1 rental property and strata management licensee, and 3 government appointees. So let's read that again. 636. The Real Estate Services Act, RESA, it stipulates that the Real Estate Council, the REC, the Real Estate Council is made up of 4, 3 representatives, 9 managing brokers, 1 rental property or strata management licensee, and 3 government appointments. 2 turtle doves and an apartment in a pear tree. Apartment? Woo. 642. 642. Where a licensee is personally involved in a real estate sale, which of the following is not a part of disclosure requirements under the Real Estate Services Act, the RESA? So what does not need to be revealed? Well, the answer is 3. The licensee must disclose any other properties currently under consideration by the licensee. So they don't need to do that. Any other properties. That's really not related to this case in a real estate sale. You don't have to mention the other listings. But the things you do need to mention are, 1, you have to say that you or an associated company or partnership are purchasing the property on their behalf. And 2, the licensee must disclose that he or she or an associated company or partner is selling their own property. You got that? And then 4, the licensee must make the required disclosure in writing in the required form prior to entering into any agreement. So all those things are necessary, but you don't need to tell their any other properties currently under consideration. So this is page 14, flipping it over. Page 14, and we got question 751 happening here. A real estate broker has listed a property for sale at a listing price of $100,000. It must be as big as my living room. The commission is agreed to be based on the difference between the listed price and the actual sales price. The agreement is, and this is 751, number 1, contrary to the Real Estate Services Act, that's RESA. So here we have a situation where a realtor sold a property for $100,000. The commission, I guess the realtor agrees with the seller that commission is going to be the difference between the actual sales price and the listed price. But this is number 1. This is against the Real Estate Service Act. This is contrary to the RESA. All right, now we got 15 happening here. 779. Kenneth, a licensed managing broker, has been sued by a buyer who relied on the advice of a representative employed by Kenneth. Evidence in the case indicated that Kenneth's representative was grossly incompetent and that Kenneth had failed to carry out his supervisory responsibilities as the managing broker. The Real Estate Council is instituting a formal disciplinary hearing to investigate the situation, and both Kenneth and the representative have received the notice of hearing. Whoa, so the Real Estate Council, they're actually going forward with formal disciplinary hearings for this managing broker and the rep. They're going to have a hearing. So they've received a notice of hearing. So Kenneth does not think that the council can discipline him, and he's angry that he's being held responsible for his rep's conduct. Which of the following statements may be false? All right. So the ones that are false are B and D. Number 3, B and D, they are false. And B reads that the rep can't be disciplined jointly with Kenneth. Only Kenneth will bear responsibility for a breach in the RESA by his employee. That's wrong. No, the rep can be disciplined along with Kenneth. And D, the real estate council has no authority to discipline Kenneth in this situation. Only his real estate board may do so. And that's wrong too. The BC the real estate council in this situation, they can, I guess it's for all BC, the real estate council, do have authority to discipline Kenneth. So those are wrong. The true things about it are A, yes, the real estate council does have the authority to subject Kenneth to a disciplinary hearing for the actions of his rep under the powers granted to the council by the RESA. Hey! And C, one of the disciplinary options available to the council in this case is to suspend Kenneth's license.哎，为什么开门了？哎，你去，妈妈给你穿衣服。你去那边，妈妈给你穿你的衣服 ，OK？ 谢谢。A little bit challenging studying on a day like this. So, anyways, the things that are false in this Kenneth situation are B, that he can't be disciplined. The rep can't be disciplined with Kenneth. Can be. And D, the real estate council has no authority to discipline Kenneth. They do. 827. Which of the following is not one of the powers and duties of the real estate council? And 827, the answer is to enforce the code of ethics and standards of business practice. So the real estate council, they don't need to, that's not their duty to enforce the code of ethics and standards of business practice. But they do have the power to, 1, establish education and experience requirements for licensing, 2, to issue and renew licenses, and 3, to ensure compliance with the requirements of the RESA. Yes, they can, but not enforce the code of ethics and standard of business practice. Page 16. The question is 829. Sorry, I couldn't pause this recording when my son came because I don't think there's a pause button on here. So I just got to motor it. 829. Which of the following pieces of info is not required to be included in the transaction record sheet? So we're talking about the transaction record sheet here. So you don't need the 2 financial institution involved in the transaction. That does not need to be put on the transaction record sheet. The bank or the credit union involved in the transaction. That's weird. But you do need 1, the nature of the real estate transaction, 3, the true consideration paid, and 4, the amount of commission paid. That needs to be on the transaction record sheet, but not the bank or credit union, the financial institution. 862. Under the regulations to the Real Estate Services Act, the RESA, certain categories of persons are exempted from the licensing requirements contained in the Act. Wow. So who is exempt from the licensing requirements? Which of the following is not covered by the exemption? And the answer is 1, an executive with the Hudson's Bay Company selling a neighbor's house for a flat fee. No, that if they're selling a house for a price, they've got to be covered by the Real Estate Services Act, the RESA. They're not exempted. But who are exempted? Well, 2, an individual providing a property inspection. They don't need a license. 3, accountants in relation to the purchase and sale of business. No, so the accountants are not under it. And then 4, a full-time salaried employee of the Mega Land Company selling houses in a 3,000 house tract developed by Mega Land Company. So if you got 3,000 house tracts, then you're exempt. You're exempt too, but not the executive at the Bay selling neighbor's house for flat fee. 873. Which of the following is not a duty or power of the Real Estate Council? I thought we got all that all over with. No. So the answer is 4, undertaking and carrying out real estate law reform. So law reform is not part of the Real Estate Council. But the other things like levying fees on all licensees in order to meet the council's expenses, holding disciplinary hearings, collecting premiums and assessments from licensees on behalf of the Real Estate Errors and Omissions Insurance Corporation, all these things the Real Estate Council has power to do. 886. When a real estate licensee advertises for sale property owned by herself, the licensee is, number 4, is not required to reveal the situation in the advertisement as long as the name, address, and phone number of the licensee's firm or place of business is not used. That's kind of weird. So let's get this again. When a real estate licensee advertises for property for sale, property owned by herself, she doesn't need, number 4, to reveal the situation in an ad, as long as her company or company's name, address, and phone number are not used, and the place of business. Well, that is kind of weird. 8. All right, so we're going to go to page 17 now. Almost at the end. 888. My favorite number. Which of the following statements about trust accounts under the Real Estate Services Act, the RESA, is false? Kind of a way of making questions is this. Number 1. So the answer is, what's false? The brokerage must have a trust account for each client. No, they don't need to have a trust account for each client. So that is false. All the rest of these are true. All clients' funds must be placed in a trust account as soon as they're received by the brokerage. That they need to do that. Money paid by mistake into trust must be withdrawn from the trust account. Yes, that's true. And money paid for expenses incurred on behalf of a client and according to the client's instruction may be withdrawn from the trust account. Yes, but you don't need to have a trust account for each client. 899. The Real Estate Services Act achieves its primary purpose in a number of ways, including number 3. Okay, so the answer is 3. A, B, and C. And what are A, B, and C? All right, the RESA achieves its primary purpose by A, setting out sales procedures, which must be followed by all licensees in order to keep their licenses. All right, that does that. They got to set out sales procedures. And B, establishing a body called the Real Estate Council of BC, which administers the details under the Act. Okay, so you got the RESA, the Act, and the Act created the council, the Real Estate Council, which administers the Act and its details. And C is also a primary purpose, which is requiring all representatives and brokerages be licensed. So all the brokerages, all the franchises or company-owned companies, and all the reps who are in it, for example, Sutton West Coast, and all the reps need to be licensed. So those things are all the purposes. All right, the only thing that's not true is providing for subdivision regulation or requiring all developers to disclose a disclosure statement. That's another law, another act, another thing. So all these other things are true, so it's A, B, and C, number 3. Now we got 943 happening here. According to the Real Estate Services Act and regulations, which of the following statements is true? And the answer is 4. A real estate representative is employed by his or her brokerage to trade in real estate in the brokerage's name on behalf of the brokerage's clients. So that's true here. You're employed by your brokerage to trade in real estate. Okay. Now, the word employed here is kind of tricky because you're actually self-employed, but you're sort of under the umbrella of the brokerage. And 979. Number 1 is the answer. I haven't even read the question yet. Okay, Tina had a listing on a house she wanted to sell to Tom. Tom didn't want to make an offer on Tina's listing because his own house had not yet sold. So Tina offered to buy Tom's present home if it didn't sell in time to close on her listing. Tina signed a statement containing the details of her promise and gave it to Tom. Tom then signed an offer on Tina's listing, which was accepted. Tom, now suffering from buyer's remorse, how complicated, is unhappy with the arrangement and has reported Tina to the Real Estate Council. Which of the following statements is true? And the answer is 1. Tina did nothing wrong in making the promise because she provided all the terms of the promise in writing to Tom prior to his entering the contract of purchase and sale. So she didn't do anything wrong. She offered to buy Tom's house if nobody else bought it, so that he could buy her house. So she didn't do anything wrong in making this promise because it was all in writing before anything had happened. And Tom accepted it. So screw his buyer's remorse. So the answer is 1 there. And the last question is 986. Under the Real Estate Services Act, where a licensee desires to buy real property or an interest in it from him or herself, or for a company of which the licensee is a shareholder, director, or officer, or for a partnership of which the licensee is a partner, which of the following must the licensee disclose in writing to the seller prior to the agreement? So what does the RESA say that a realtor needs to disclose in writing? And the answer is number 4. The licensee is required to disclose all of the above. And what is the all from number 4? Number 1, they have to disclose that he or she is a licensee acquiring the real estate for him or herself or the corporation or partnership. You got to do that. You have to say that you are the licensee. You are a licensee. Got to tell them that you're licensed. 2, the amount of remuneration the licensee expects to receive based on the transaction. So you got to tell them, number 1, you got a license. Number 2, how much money you're expecting to get. And number 3, the name of the person to whom the disclosure is made. So you got to put that on the written disclosure. You say who it's sort of like a cover letter. You're addressing it to a particular person. So all of the above. The answer is 4. And thank you, everybody. This is the end of lesson 2. This is my first MP3, and hopefully it will work out so I can put it on a CD in my